My name is Buddy Bakersmith. I'm the chairperson of the Dartmouth Community Preservation Committee. I have had the pleasure of being on the committee for a number of years, and we have had 20 years of the Community Preservation Act in the town of Dartmouth as of 2022. And as a committee, we thought it was really important to step back and take a look at what the accomplishments have been for the Community Preservation Act in our town. The Preservation Act was a unique piece of legislation that was passed back in 2002, I believe. And the act provides a revenue source and also a mechanism for local control. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what the CPA has meant to the town of Dartmouth in those first 20 years. We are a 9-person committee, and by legislation that membership consists of a representative from the Housing Authority, a representative from Conservation Commission, a representative from the Town Planning Committee, and the representative from the Historical Commission. And then there are 4 other at-large members. In the 20 years with the CPA in Dartmouth, we have invested approximately $14.3 million of CPA funds, and that includes $11 million of surcharge revenue over those years from town residents, and about another $4.8 million from the state of Massachusetts in its CPA matching fund. Of those funds, of that kind of $15.8 million that we've collected, we've committed about 91% of those funds. And I think that's important because a real commitment of the CPC is that the town realize tangible benefits from the CPA. So it's very important for us to support the investment of the funds that have been collected to ensure that as Dartmouth residents, you see the benefits and actually can experience the benefits of the CPA. Over the 20 years, those benefits include more than 700 acres of open space that have been preserved with conservation restrictions. They all have public access, walking trails. It includes another more than 200 acres of agricultural land that's preserved for agricultural use. It includes 11 units of affordable housing, and with projects currently underway that should rise to, in a year, to 21 units of affordable housing. And it also includes about 11 different historic sites, and additionally 4 new recreation sites, as well as another 4 recreation sites that have been improved or rehabilitated with CPA funds. Those are all real benefits to the town residents. You can go out and enjoy them. All of this developed with CPA funds. One of the things that's important to also realize about the investment is often these projects require additional funds for them to be completed. So with the $14.3 million approximately of CPA investment in town projects, another $24 million in state, federal, and private financing and funds have been invested in those very same projects. So we're really talking about, with these CPA projects, which are approximately 69 projects and 88 different awards. Some require multiple awards. But with those projects, we're talking about an investment in town of more than $38 million, and that's significant. One of the things that is important to us on the committee is to ensure that there's a balance of how we use the funds. The committee doesn't start projects or initiate projects. We expect to have people apply, send us proposals. We evaluate those proposals on behalf of the town. And when there are viable projects that we feel can be successful and represent the priorities of the CPA and the town, we bring those forward to town meeting, and it really is town meeting that is the decision-making body on where to invest the CPA funds. After the funds are approved at town meeting, the committee has project grant agreements and memorandums of understanding that enable us to follow the projects all the way through to completion to ensure that the intent of how we wanted to use, the town meeting wanted the funds to be used, indeed have been used in that way.
I'm Melissa Haskell, and I had the good fortune of being part of the group of people that helped to get Community Preservation Act adopted in the town of Dartmouth. And then I got a chance to serve as the chairperson of the Community Preservation Committee when the committee formed and started in town. And I think one of the things that's important to remember is that Michael Gagne at the time was the town administrator, and he was the one that brought the Community Preservation Act to the attention of the people in town and organized the committee to pass the Community Preservation Act. I think it was important to the town that they passed the Community Preservation Act, and I feel lucky and proud to be part of a community that had the forethought to invest in the things that make the town special, not just the open space and recreation and the historical preservation, but also in the low-income housing so that we keep the fabric of the community here. Those people that grew up here may have an opportunity to buy back into town at an affordable price, and as people age, they might be able to stay in town.
DNRT is a fully nationally accredited land trust, and we've been in operation since 1971. Our role is to protect the most important natural resources in Dartmouth by working with landowners and in partnership with the town and other conservation organizations. CPA has been really important to a number of really critical land protection projects that DNRT has accomplished. With the support of CPA, we've been able to protect almost 800 acres of property, really critical habitat and publicly accessible trails in Dartmouth. In addition to the almost 800 acres that we've protected of really important critical habitats in Dartmouth, the CPA has been totally critical to our renovation and establishment here of our headquarters on Chase Road. Helfand Farm and the farmhouse that we use as our office dates to the 1800s, and so having that support to renovate and do period appropriate, aesthetically pleasing renovations and add-ons to this building really is important to our mission and our role in town. Going forward in the future, many of the things that DNRT does are right in line with the open space and recreation plan that the town has. So having a partner in CPA, having a partner with the committee to make these projects happen is really important to us, not only to protect these important habitats, but to have trails and other accessible places for the public to come and enjoy. DNRT's mission is to protect and preserve the natural resources of Dartmouth. One of those resources is good farmland. That's a resource that doesn't just happen. And so in order for farmland to stay farmland, it needs to be farmed. So DNRT is really proud to work with agricultural landowners whenever we can and pull in support from the CPA and from other partners to protect that land, to make sure we have healthy soils, smart management of our watersheds, and local food sources that have been so important. Of the 10 projects that we've worked on with CPC support, we've been able to use that money to leverage other donations. In fact, we typically leverage about 4 to 1 in terms of the CPA funds that we receive. So really what it is an opportunity to meld that private funding with town support. DNRT has had some really big projects with CPA support, some projects over 100 acres. One of the things we're most proud of, though, is 2 separate acquisitions that happened back to back in 2021 and then again in 2022 in the Russell's Mills area. Russell's Mills Woods is an approximately 42-acre parcel that is comprised of 3 different lots where the families wanted to work with DNRT to preserve their land. This reserve, just opening this summer, is eventually going to connect to Destruction Brook Woods, one of our most popular reserves, and have hiking trails that are accessible from both properties. These parcels are a critical link in an almost 7-mile chain of protected land from Buzzards Bay all the way to UMass Dartmouth. That's important to the town because when we think about resiliency to climate change, the connectivity of protected land is so important. And so those are the kinds of projects that DNRT is most excited to partner with the CPC on. One of the things that people outside of Dartmouth know DNRT best for is the daffodil fields that we have at Parsons Reserve in Russell's Mills. This is a spring attraction that brings people from all over New England and is featured in all kinds of media publications. Having opportunities like that to showcase not just our work, but Dartmouth in general, is a really great opportunity, we think, for the town and for DNRT in terms of gaining future support and really having folks recognize the importance of protected space.
My name's Elizabeth Frary. My husband and I own Copacut Farms, which is the farm that we're here on now. And we were able to begin farming this land because it was preserved by the town of Dartmouth. There was another farming family on the property. They were intending to sell it, and the town of Dartmouth stepped in and purchased it using CPA funds with the intention of it remaining as farmland. And then we participated in a competitive process for a request for proposals to be able to be the farmers that were placed on the property. And we were awarded the property, and initially we just leased it, and then sort of when everyone got their ducks in a row, we were able to purchase it. And that was about 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe 7. And so without that, and without the CPA funds that were available to purchase the land off the previous farm owner, we would not have been able to be on this property. And so when we came here, it was just open land. None of the buildings or anything was here. There was just one small pole barn on the building. And over the last 12 years, we've put up agricultural structures, and we've put in the things we would need. And now we raise chickens, turkeys, pigs, sheep, and laying hens, which are behind me, on the property. And then all of the meat and eggs that we get from the animals, we then sell in the community. So we either do farmers markets in this area or in the Boston area, and we also have a home delivery service, which we do as well.
I didn't grow up on a farm, but I liked animals, being outdoors, and working with my hands. So, owing to the adage that you only live once, we quit our jobs, put the family in the car, and headed back home to Massachusetts. That was 8 years and 2,500 miles ago, and we haven't looked back.
My joke is in a previous life, we had real jobs, and then we were living in Arizona, out of state. So I grew up in this area. My family has been farming in the Dighton, Somerset area for 4 generations. I'm the 4th generation of it. And we had gone to college and done all sorts of other things, and we had moved out west to Arizona, and we were living out there, and we wanted to farm. So we returned back to the area with the hope of finding farmland, to be closer to family. And that's when we heard that this property that there was a request for proposals for this property. So that's how we ended up here farming again. I think the hope is that we'd really like to be able to continue, into the future. We really feel good about what we do. We're lucky enough to be able to spend our days doing something that feels meaningful. Feeding our community feels like an important, good thing to get yourself out of bed for in the morning.
Since its inception, the CPA Act has contributed to the park system quite heavily in Dartmouth. We've received over $1.7 million in community preservation funds since CPC started over 20 years ago. The first project that we did is right here behind us. It's the Gulf Hill Dairy Bucket that we used historic funds, preservation funds to restore, move down here from the YMCA and prevent the building from being demolished. It's now currently our concession stand here at Apponeganset. We've also used CPC funds in this particular park on several other projects. The pavilion right here to my right was also constructed in part by community preservation funds, as well as the renovation to the bandstand here, which also made it handicap accessible, and obviously folks know is used quite heavily during the summer months. In addition to that, at some of our other parks, we've been able to utilize CPC money for the renovation of our playgrounds. At all 4 of our larger park facilities, we've recently and are still in the process of renovating our playground system to bring it up to code with current ADA access requirements. As we move forward into the future, we do have some funds from CPC. We're going to be building a permanent dog park at the regional park on Old Fort River Road. So those are some of the projects that we've utilized CPC for here in the park system to date. Pretty much all of the projects that I have talked about here today wouldn't have been possible without the CPC and the CPA Act. Those are all projects that in the past, historically, Dartmouth hasn't funded through its operating capital budget. So now with CPC, it offers us the opportunity to find matching funds to assist on the town tax levy so that we can get some of these projects done. Because as you know, some of these projects that we've done here hadn't been touched in over 40 years. So playgrounds had been installed here I believe 26 years ago since they had been upgraded. The bandstand was installed in the 1970s. None of those facilities would have been able to receive upgrades and renovations to bring us up to code or whatnot without the assistance of the CPA Act.
Hi, I'm Connie Desbian, and up to a year ago I was the former Executive Director of the Dartmouth Housing Authority. And I'm here to tell you today about how much the CPC funds have helped our most recent project, the O'Connor Sisson Veterans House, which was built and finished in 2018. At the very beginning of this project, we came before CPC for some study money, and they gave that to us, and we were able to do a research, so to speak, whether we needed this type of housing in this town. That being said, we did need it, and we came back to CPC, and they then gave the project $500,000 to start with the development of that project. They, along with other funding sources from the state, helped us to put 9 units of veterans housing in the old former state police barracks on State Road. CPC and the town have continued to support development of housing in the town. Without that, we probably would never have gotten the project off the ground. Most recently, CPC has given Partners in Housing, a nonprofit developer, $1 million over 2 different awards for a new development which will have 10 units of elderly housing for clients of the Department of Mental Health. We're looking forward to building this building, and again, without CPC funding, we would not have been able to do it, and we thank you for it.
My name is Diane Gilbert, and I'm the president of the Dartmouth Heritage Preservation Trust. We're a nonprofit comprised of board members who are also volunteers. No one gets compensated on the Dartmouth Heritage Preservation Trust. And our main focus, ever since we were formed, which was back in March of 2007, was the 1762 Aiken House. And it's been a long journey for us. And before us, the Waterfront Historic Area League had purchased this property using Community Preservation Act funds that was funded by town meeting. The Community Preservation Act is very near and dear to me. Back in 2001, the town organized an ad hoc committee to investigate whether or not the Community Preservation Act would be good for the town of Dartmouth. And I'm here to tell you, the CPA has been outstanding for the town of Dartmouth. And without the funding that we were fortunate to receive, this house wouldn't even be standing here today. When people first built it, they were subjects of King George III. He was actually king for 2 years by the time that this house was built in 1762. And what's really important about this house is just not its historic character as a structure and as a study house, which is what we always intended it to be. With this Community Preservation Act, there's no time to really wax eloquent about how important this legislation has been to the town of Dartmouth. We were among the early adopters back in 2001. The benefits from it, with all of the projects that have been funded by CPA, would never have been possible. Communities are always struggling with their operational funding challenges. So it was intended to be extra for townspeople to consider that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. So it's that supplement, if you want to call it that, that has made it possible for this community to protect open space, to save important historic houses, to do recreational facilities, and also to work towards better housing for people who need it.
So today we're going to figure out, we're actually going to walk back in time, which is kind of cool.
Let's say 1765 or 66 was when the revolution was brewing. And so there was activity, but it wasn't really until after the Declaration of Independence. I mean, there was a lot going on during that time that also makes this house significant because it sat here during all of those world events, and it's still standing here to this day. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And not only that, but as typical of old houses that get purchased to be saved, the thought process can be, well, let's put an L on it. Let's change it somehow. Let's make more room because the family is growing. In this case, it was built exactly the way you see it today, with a cellar, with a first floor, and with what we call an attic, but they would have considered it a second story with bedrooms. But it has not changed. And some of you may know that this Aiken house, we call it the little house with a big story to tell. And that's what we try to do. Whenever we have events here and people come here to learn about the house, as I said, it's a study house, but it's also a study of the inhabitants, not only the Aikens, but the people in South Dartmouth here that were essentially, you know, the founders of this area. And so we're really proud of the stories that we can tell, that they're at our disposal to tell. And also that we can talk about the revolution, and we can talk about what life was like here after the 18th century and the 19th century, all the way up to the 20th and the 21st. We invite people to take advantage of visiting the Aiken House when we have events. We also offer private tours. We are always happy to show this house because we are so proud of it. I want to emphasize that the Aiken House is one of the oldest houses in Dartmouth, and we do think it is important that people take advantage of learning about Dartmouth's history, and so hopefully in our own way we do try to do that for everyone.
My name is Bob Harding. I have been the president of Dartmouth Historical and Arts Society for quite a while, 8 or 9 years or so. I'm really not sure. Time goes by when you're having fun. I'm also a member of the Dartmouth Historical Commission, and I've been very active in town, having moved here in 1946. I'm happy to share with you the experiences that my organization has had with the CPC, even though most of the experience took place here before I came into view at this organization. Sometime after the organization was founded in 2011, they sought funds to restore and preserve this beautiful old schoolhouse library, which was built in 1871. And they did secure the funds, and they did preserve and restore the building, and we have maintained it. The CPC funds allowed us to keep the building in decent condition and to utilize the building for our meetings ever since. And they also gave us the leverage to raise outside money out of Dartmouth. I'm really grateful for all the work that CPC has done with us and in the town as a whole, and their respect for history, because the history of this town is really quite spectacular and quite unique. And as an example of some of the work that we've done here at the DHAS, we call it DHAS to save our breath for the long title. We've published a 2-volume book, and this is what the book looks like. This is the first of 2 volumes, about 1,500 pages, and these are the transcription of the manuscripts kept by the Quakers of Dartmouth since 1699, monthly minutes giving the events taking place and the people involved here in Dartmouth. So that's about all I want to take time to talk about. I am very appreciative of the work of the CPC and Buddy Baker and all of those people who continue to support preservation of historical knowledge in the town of Dartmouth.
If you want to know about our activities and you're interested in applying for money in particular, our webpage can be found on the town website. You will find the current project submissions that are being reviewed. You'll see the whole proposal, as well as our application for funding and the submission requirements. We do 2 funding rounds each year and align that with the June and October town meeting. So you will find on our webpage a document that gives you all of the deadlines, but typically in January we have a deadline for proposals to be considered for the June town meeting, and in June of each calendar year we have a deadline for proposals to be considered for October. And you can see in the submission requirements what our priorities are, and they are based on, one, the Community Preservation Act, which has certain requirements and eligibility requirements, and you can see those in the description of submission requirements, as well as priorities that reflect the town's goals, which can be found in our master plan, our open space and recreation plan, our harbor management plan and housing production plan, to name some of the key documents that we look to and pull our goals and objectives from. Each year, we ask for public comment on what the needs of the town are and what our priorities ought to be for CPA funds. So I encourage people to attend the CPA meeting or offer comments, CPC meeting, or offer comments. At our meetings are typically either our October or November meeting, where we take public comment on our annual plan. And each time we consider proposals, there's an opportunity for public comment. So typically that is our March and our August CPC meetings, where there's room or opportunity for public comment on the proposals that are under consideration. So we definitely encourage people to give us feedback, encourage people to apply for CPA funds. And I think going forward, it's been a really successful 20 years. I think there are key benefits to the town that everyone can point to. But we look forward to the tremendous support that we've had from the town and town meeting in particular for using these CPA funds for the good of the town of Dartmouth. Thank you.